So what I talk about is that movement from consumption to creation. I think it asks us to think quite a bit about the profession. We have to ask ourselves, are we primarily an information profession? Or are we primarily about personal and community growth, about exploration, about discovery, about creativity? And the book that I really like to reference at this particular point, by the way, when we did the mission statement for the Hamilton Public Library, and it's freedom to discover is the mission statement, what we actually did is we took the phrase where it was blank is to public libraries as education is to public schools. And then we invited all staff to fill in the blank. And oh my God, what a wonderful experience it was. Maureen was there when we were doing that. Daphne, you were there when we were doing that. And it was fantastic because people said, well, curiosity. Curiosity is to public libraries as education is to public schools. People got really invented. Then somebody else wrote back and said, no. They bring the curiosity. It's like, they have the itch, and we provide them with the means of scratching it. So they bring the curiosity. We actually help them to find something that satisfies that curiosity. So, and then they said, yeah, we're about discovery. So that's why we changed our mission statement. I want to talk for just a second about the Clayton Christensen book. And this is a 1997 book called The Innovator's Dilemma. And it's an absolutely terrific book because what he actually talks about is, another survey that I was working on, constantly libraries would say, well, we're customer focused. We make our decisions based upon customer needs. We're customer focused. We listen to our customers. We do our surveys. We do the customers. And that's great. There is absolutely nothing wrong with doing all of that. But the Innovator's Dilemma sort of says, here's the problem with it. And this, as I say, was a book that was done in 1997. It says the problem with being customer focused is the customer is your customer because they like your services and they don't want you to change. So the customer is actually saying, you're doing great. You're doing absolutely everything perfectly. But what Clayton Christensen says is the customer is also fickle because if somebody comes along and has a better product and they like it a little bit better, then they'll go, you're doing great right up until the day they leave you and start using the better product. So they're saying you have to be customer focused, but you also have to take into consideration customer habits, demographics, technologies, the ways in which people are going to begin using the types of services and be prepared for them when they get there is part of the process, and that's the hard part of the process. There's a wonderful story, a case study. Daphne and I have talked about it on a number of occasions where they talk about the case studies of the collapse of Eaton's. And the Eaton's board evidently loved exit surveys. And right up until the day that they closed their doors, they would read the exit surveys all the time. And they were satisfaction surveys of were you happy with the services you received at Eaton's? And up until the day they went bankrupt, the customers were telling them, we love you guys. We get the best customer service from you guys possible. And then they closed the doors because there weren't enough people actually there to take the surveys when they were leaving. So they were missing a component. They were asking the people that were still using them, and the people that were still using them were telling them why they loved them, but they weren't asking the people that weren't using them anymore why they weren't using them anymore. And to an extent, libraries do the very same thing, is we pay an awful lot of attention to the people that are still inside of our doors. And for some time, we're going to be offering a hybrid type of a service where we're serving people in terms of some of the traditional services and the needs that they actually bring, but we're preparing for the future so that that next generation is able to discover and able to use things as well. Noisy versus quiet spaces and noisy versus quiet uses. This one really bugs me. I can't tell you how many libraries I've been in which I ask them about the noisy versus quiet uses. And what they actually say to me is, well, we have rules, about noise. We have rules, so we make sure that the noisy uses don't work because we have rules, Well, you know what? If you have people who are new Canadians that want to Skype back home, it's probably going to be a noisy use of that particular computer. If you have students that must work on a collaboration project, it's probably going to be a noisier use. So in the future, one of the things we have to try to do is to figure out how we're going to marry and accept the noisy uses that are inside the library with the desire for some of those quiet uses at a time. It may mean that for a while what we're doing is segregating the noisier uses by creating those study spaces or study rooms, but eventually we may be segregating the people that want the quieter spaces because the noisier uses are considerably larger. There's an absolute, I don't know if you know this, but the largest capital project that's taking place in Europe at the present time is the Aarhus public library in Denmark, the second largest city in Denmark. It's a 180 million euro project, so it's huge, absolutely huge project. And when you look at it, it is absolutely designed along the area of noisy spaces, creation, community space, community use, with the materials being a component of it, but with it being exactly everything that we're talking about. Their planning documents are magnificent. And in fact, I've got copies of them that they gave me, and I used some of those for the presentation or the preparation of the report. The other thing really is quality spaces. And there was a period of time, and certainly I think even when I first started working as a librarian, that I heard an awful lot where people would say, you know what, we can't spend much money on our building, or we need to buy the cheap tables over here and the cheap chairs because we're tax funded. And if we build anything that looks good, then people will think their tax dollars are kind of wasted. So we have to make sure it looks cheap, you know. I've actually heard that. But the reality is that people respond to quality spaces. People like to be in quality spaces. And when you build quality spaces, the number of people who use you will increase dramatically. And one of the things that I'll really stress in here, and this is the Hamilton Public Library done fairly recently when we did it. And one of the things you can see is we redid the first floor of the library. We're still doing the second, third, and fourth floor, or they're still doing it because I retired. But the designs are already done, so they're doing the other floors for it. One of the things we realized in this is that street space sells the library, and that we were right next to Copps Coliseum, which had 2 million people a year that went to hockey games and concerts at the Copps Coliseum. So we designed the library so that the study space is in the window, so that the computer space is in the window, so that the Wi-Fi bars, where lots of people are using Wi-Fi, is in the windows. We put in 2 giant screens that are sort of a see-through glass type of a screen that you can project onto, so that we could project artwork onto the outside walls at nighttime after the library closed. And then we used LED lights that were part of the building that changed colors, so that everybody who went to Copps Coliseum would walk away and go back to their cars and say, wow, you know, that's a place that I want to go to. And it's extremely important for us to do that. And it's extremely important for 2 reasons. One is we want to get more people to go inside the library. And when we did that, our use in the Central Library went up 40%. And we did that more than 2 years ago, and it stayed up 40% during that entire period of time. But the other reason is that those people who aren't going to go into the library, you want them to feel that their tax dollars are well spent, because only 50% of the people probably use the library, have a library card, and 50% don't. But you want to make sure that you have street presence, so that everybody who's going home at night, everybody who drives by it, everybody who goes to Copps Coliseum begins to think, my God, that library is a fantastic place. Don't use it, but my God, it's fantastic. So when my tax bill comes along, I don't mind spending money on it because it's absolutely fantastic. So here's another one of those examples, is that strong street presence. So it's not just quality spaces, strong street presence. This is a building, part of the library that we did, that was attached to a giant YMCA. And we decided that we needed to have a fairly strong street presence to offset the size of this massive YMCA that was next to us. So we put the living room at the front. We overbuilt the size of the fireplace so that the stonework was right at the street side of it. We made it so that from the side you could see the living room. And across the front part, again, you could see the sort of comfortable chairs where people were sitting there and using their laptops, because it's all hot in that area, and they could use their laptops for Wi-Fi in that area. And it's filled up every night. So everybody that's going home, passing by the street, sees these beautiful windows, this beautiful space, and sees people using computers, and sees people sitting down and reading magazines, and sees the computer area, and begins to think, wow, maybe that's a place I want to go to. I might want to visit that library.